Hi, my name is Sheetal, and welcome to today's Chitta Yoga practice. For those of you that aren't familiar, Chitta is a Sanskrit word that means mind, but I like to use that as an acronym, CHITTA, to represent my approach to teaching yoga. So Chitta stands for conscious, healing, intentional, transforming, therapeutic, and accessible. So I welcome you to today's practice and I hope you enjoy. So today's Chitta Yoga practice is part of the Release and Refresh series. And so this series focuses on releasing chronic tension and congestion from our muscle tissue, our connective tissue, our fascial tissue. And we're going to do that by using therapeutic balls. And then after we do that, after we squeeze the tension kind of out of various areas, key areas of our bodies, then we're going to add movement. We're going to do different forms of movement to refresh that area, to bring hydration and circulation back to those areas. So that's why we call this series Release and Refresh. And today's focus is going to be on the feet and the legs. So, as I said, we're going to use some therapeutic balls, and you may have some massage balls or fascial release balls like these. These are Yoga Tune-Up. That's the brand that these are. But there's lots of different brands out there, and you might have some at your disposal. So if you do, you can certainly grab those. Now, if you don't have any special massage balls or fascial release balls, tennis balls work really well, and those are pretty accessible. So grab yourself a couple of tennis balls, and you can use those. Or if you have no tennis balls or massage balls at your disposal, then you can actually get a few socks. Get maybe 2 to 4 socks, depending on the width of the sock, or I'm sorry, the thickness of the socks, and roll them up into a ball. And believe it or not, these will work really well because when we're doing this kind of fascial release work, we really want to go more on the gentle side rather than the aggressive side. And we're not looking for a lot of intense pressure. And in fact, I like to say that we're looking for that Goldilocks sensation, just right, not too hard, not too soft, right? So we're looking for that just right feeling where we feel sensation, um, but it's nowhere near pain. It might be a little uncomfortable, little discomfort's not bad because we're working through that. But we never want to get on the stronger side of discomfort or anywhere near pain. And that's why the socks will work if you don't have the balls. So in addition to the balls, get any other accessories that you may like to use. In fact, I recommend having maybe some yoga blankets or some large towels and hand towels, yoga blocks if you have them, or just some firm cushions and pillows, maybe some books that could be helpful. So yeah, whatever you have around the house that is going to help give you some support during your yoga practice, gather it up and let's begin. Okay, so we're going to start with the feet. So let's take one of our balls and just bring it onto your mat. It doesn't matter which foot you start with. And let's just bring one of our feet. I'm going to start with my right foot. I'm bringing the right foot and the ball to the center, right at the center of my right foot. So if you have any kind of balance issues, of course, make sure you're near a wall or have a chair or something that's not going to move nearby that you can hang on to as you do this. Because we're just going to spend a few breaths just allowing the weight of the right leg, right foot sink into the ball right at the center of the foot. So as you do this, and remember, Goldilocks sensation, not too hard, not too soft. Just find that just right feeling where you can have some sensation, and it may be a little uncomfortable. That's okay, but it's not pain. It's not near pain. So once we find that spot right at the center of the foot, a couple of nice big breaths. Just let the weight of your legs sink as best as you can. Of course, maintaining that just right sensation. If it gets too intense, you let up. Beautiful. And so once we do that for a handful of breaths, then we're going to move the foot so that the heel is on the mat, and we're going to be right under the ball of the foot. So you're going to place the ball under the ball of the foot. And we're just going to go side to side like this. And just kind of press into the ball gently. Again, that just right sensation as you go side to side. It might move a little. You might have to kind of move with the ball if it slides a little, or pin it down a little bit better. And we're just going to go side to side with the cross fiber kind of massaging of the ball of the foot. Breathe. Beautiful. And then after we do that, we will take the toes onto the mat and bring the ball right at the top of the heel. So there's kind of a point at the top of the heel. And we're just going to let the weight first sink into that point. And just, again, it may not feel intense, and it's okay. It doesn't need to feel intense. So don't look for that real shooting or sharp or intense kind of deep sensation that sometimes we feel like we need to have in order for anything to release, and that's not the case. So once you let the weight of your foot sink for a few breaths, then we're going to do that side to side cross fiber movement again, right kind of at the band at the top of the heel there, going side to side at that area. So these areas so far that we've done, these are common areas of fascial congestion, where the connective tissue, the fascial tissue, the muscle tissue all kind of get bound up and congested, causing for chronic tension and achiness sometimes. And you might even feel it. You might even notice that kind of tenderness in those areas. Wonderful. And so after several breaths of that, we're going to release that. And then we're going to draw lines from each toe, top of each toe, or the ball of each toe, I should say, to the heel. So I'm going to start with the big toe and draw a line from the toe to the heel, and then bring it back, and then the second toe, and then the third toe, fourth toe, and then fifth toe. So we're going to do that a few times. So just kind of mindfully try to apply even pressure as best as you can as you roll the ball. Again, use a wall if you feel like it'd be easier to just hold on to something as you do this. Now, what's interesting is that a lot of these common areas of restriction, fascial restriction that I was mentioning, they also correlate to marma points. And marma points are junctions in the body where the physical body and the subtle body come together. So it makes sense. So a few more times here, and then we're going to pick up the ball and do the other side. So let's start with that center point and just pressing your weight into that center point. Release your weight gently. Find that just right sensation on this side, and it might be different. So really feel for that. Take those nice big breaths. So as I was saying, the marma points are these junctions where the physical body and the subtle body come together. And it makes sense because the various forms, the various types of tissue that I was mentioning are aspects of the physical body. And then energetically, we have these marma points, which are similar to acupressure points or acupuncture points. And they are part of the energy body or the subtle body. And so it makes sense that they kind of correspond and correlate. And it also makes sense that these would be the areas where we might find restriction and blockage and congestion. And so we're not only working with the physical tissues when we work some of these points, but some of them we're also working marma points. We're working energetically in the subtle body to release energy blockage as well. So that's really powerful. It's really nice. So after several breaths there, let's then bring the heel down and kind of go side to side, pinning the tennis ball or whatever ball you're using under the ball of the foot. As you go side to side, doing some cross fiber work there. And wherever you feel the sensation, especially, then that's where you want to work. But again, not forcing, not being aggressive. Breathing with it. Breathing, release. Imagining release in those areas. Awesome. So after several breaths of that, we will then bring the toes to the floor. That top point above the heel, right at the top of the heel. And first, actually, we should just kind of settle into it. I started cross-fibering right away, but let's just take a few breaths first to just kind of settle the weight into that point, which is a marma point. And take a couple breaths, feel that just right sensation. Maybe even as you just hold this and breathe a few breaths, you might feel some releasing happening. And then let's go ahead and do some of that cross fiber movement side to side. Oops, and sometimes the ball will get away and you just got to bring it right back. After a while, you get familiar with exactly the right amount of pressure that you need to place to keep the ball in place and to do the work. Couple more breaths here. And then we'll do the line. So starting with the big toe, make that line. And then going through each of the other toes from the toe to the heel. We'll do that a few times, trying to apply even pressure as best as you can. So this may seem really familiar if you know about the melt method. That's a system of work that uses various kinds of balls, as well as other types of accessories to release fascial tension and congestion from the body. And there's a few different systems like that. So some of this may seem familiar to you. And I've done some work with a bunch of those different systems. And I've kind of integrated different aspects of those with my own bodywork experience and yoga experience to come up with this series for you this time around. Good. So once we're done with that, just take a moment, bring the ball aside, and now we're going to refresh and bring some circulation and some hydration back to the feet. So take a moment in a mountain pose, and let's just stand here and first feel your balance and notice how the feet feel. And hopefully they feel more open, more vibrant, more energized, more released, of course. And we're going to start doing some rocking on our feet. So just kind of rock to the toes and to the heels. Again, watching for your balance. If you need to hold the wall here as well, you certainly can if you're near a wall or near a chair. And you don't have to come all the way up onto your toes unless you want to, but you can. You start with a little rock first, just toes and the ball mounds to the heel mounds. Wonderful. Just bringing the movement, the undulating movement, kind of bring some circulation back to the feet that we just released using the balls. And then shake those legs out a little bit. And let's then shift your weight to one leg and let's do some rotations. I'll turn to face you to make it a little bit easier to see. And then a few times in the other direction. Nice, gentle, mindful movement, releasing the ankle. So breathe with this. Really bring awareness to the ankle. Breathing into the ankle. The ankle itself, that ankle joint area is a marma area as well. Marma point. We call it a marma point, but it's really more of an area. Marma points are not so much very specific points like acupressure points, but they're often more of an area. Good. And then once we do that rotation, let's take the foot back and the top of the foot. Place the top of the toes onto the floor. And depending on your flexibility through the toes, the ankle, you may want to just do it right next to the supporting foot, or you might want to take it back wherever you're able to balance more and it feels best for you. So see where that feels good to you. And we're just going to let the weight of that leg sink into the tops of the toes, the top of that foot for a few breaths. Feel that nice stretch at the front of the ankle. Awesome. And then just kind of shake that foot out. Little balancing here. Grab a hold of something if you need to. As you just shake that foot, shake that ankle. All right. And then bring it down. And just take a moment to notice what you notice. And then we'll do the other side, of course. So we'll start with the little rotations. One direction. And then the other direction. Nice, mindful. Go at the pace that feels good to you, but be mindful about it. Breathe with it. And after several rounds of rotations, again, wherever you're comfortable, balancing with that foot going back, or maybe just rolling onto the top of the toes right next to your supporting foot. Breathing into that. Feel the opening. Feel the hydration at the top of the foot. Breathing into it. And then as you bring that foot forward, shake it out. All sorts of movement with that foot, with the ankle. Mine's cracking. And bring it down. All right, one last time. Just find that mountain pose. Lift those toes up. Feel your even weight through your feet and just take a few breaths. Notice what you notice. How do those feet feel? What are they saying to you? All right. And now we're going to move to the floor, work our way up the legs. So we're going to come down and we're going to take both balls this time. And we're going to be sitting on our knees in a Thunderbolt pose. And so if this is not comfortable for your knees, there is a modification to this, which I'll show you. So if you're uncomfortable sitting in this hero pose, Thunderbolt pose, then we can modify our seat to sit with our legs extended. And if you need to even be up on a blanket or bolster or pillow to allow yourself to sit comfortably upright, we can do that. And then we can take our tennis balls, and you could do this at the same time, both legs at the same time, or you could do it one leg at a time. And as I was saying, we are going to come a few inches above the ankle there, right when we get into the fleshy part, the lower fleshy part of the calf. And so again, I could do this with both legs, both balls up there, or I could just do one at a time. And then just allow your legs to sink. So taking those first few breaths, allowing the weight of the legs to sink into the balls. And after those first few breaths, we can maybe rock a little bit forward and back to just get that up and down kind of massaging feeling. You could do alternating side to side like that. And then just moving the toes side to side like windshield wipers to get a little bit more of a cross fiber type massaging feeling. So that's how we could work with these same points on the calf and the hamstring area without sitting in that pose, if that's not comfortable for you. So then we would just take the balls right below the knee. So definitely not in the knee crease. We want to be below that, again, in the fleshy part of the calf at the top there. And again, you could do one leg or two legs, depending on what feels best to you. And then again, letting the weight sink, doing a little vertical movement, and then also doing a little side to side horizontal movement. And we would just work our way up. So then going to the area above, on the hamstrings, above the knee, because when we're sitting, we're catching the calf and the hamstring at the same time. So when we're doing it in this pose, we only really do it twice to get both the areas, the warmer points on the calf and the hamstring. When we do it like this in this modified version, we're doing it 4 times to get each of those. So then above the knee on the hamstring, the lower part of the hamstring, and once again, and this time you're not going to, it may not be as easy, but you could still do a little vertical movement here with the legs Just kind of pointing and flexing the feet will even do it. And you might even want to not be on your support, or maybe be a little lower in order to get a little more pressure. But again, we're still looking for that Goldilocks sensation just right. And then side to side, just taking the hips and the legs a little more side to side to get that cross fiber sensation. And then the final spot would be about midway on the calves, maybe slightly higher than midway, but pretty much right about, you're going to, again, know because of any kind of sensation, the tenderness you might feel. And then again, just letting the weight sink before you start doing some gentle vertical movement. And then you might even have to move the body a little bit here in order to get the sensation of cross fiber, side to side. It doesn't take much. You don't have to move much. We don't have to go the full kind of width of the hamstring. We're just looking for a little bit of massaging side to side. And there you have it. That's the modified version of working with the calves and the hamstrings if the sitting on the balls like this is not comfortable for you. If you need any kind of support for your ankles, you could get a towel or a blanket at the tops of your ankles, or feeling like they need a little something, you can always place something under the ankles before you come into this position. So get what you need. And we're going to start off by taking each of the balls, and we are going to place the balls about maybe 2.5 to 3 inches, maybe like 3 inches above the heel. So we're bypassing the Achilles, and we're going to where you can feel the fleshy calf muscle tissue, and we're going right there, kind of like I said, about 3 inches or so, and that's where we want to place the ball. So the other option I just thought of, which I failed to mention, is that you could also just get some blocks or a bolster or some cushions, and you could sit on that, as long as you're able to sit into the ball. Okay, so you don't want to be so high that you can't sit into the ball, but you could certainly, like I could use 2 blocks and I could still sit into the ball. But at some point that might not be enough then. That might not be enough pressure, and you might have to release that. So you decide if you need anything. But again, I'm going to place those balls right there, kind of right. And as soon as you come down onto them, I'm sure you're going to notice if you're in the right spot, because you'll feel it. So find again, just right sensation. They may slide a little bit to one side or another, so you may have to just kind of play with them, and use your hands for support here. So again, we don't want to be in pain. So if you're not comfortable sitting fully upright in this Thunderbolt, in this hero pose, because it's too much pressure, then by all means, please lean forward and lean into your hands until you get that just right sensation. And then we're just going to let our weight sink. Breathe into this. Breathe into this. Each breath helps release some of that discomfort, some of the congestion, the tenderness that's being felt because of the tension that's created in the tissue there. And so we just hang out here, and maybe as things release for us and soften, you can allow more weight to sink, and you can let up on your arms and your hands a little bit more. If it's really intense, of course, the further down you come, the less pressure is there. So you can also come down to your forearms if it's really intense for you, and then ease your way up as things soften. So once things do soften and we hang out there for several breaths, the other thing that we can do again is that cross fiber, and that's just this little gentle swaying side to side. So it's just rocking the hips side to side so that your thighs kind of sway over the balls. And then you can always adjust the spot a little bit. So if you found a spot that was really tender, then of course move maybe just a little bit to the inside or outside or up or down so that it's not so tender. And then after you work the not so tender spot, you might be able to go back to that initial tender spot, that really bad one, or intense one, I should say, not really bad. And see if you can get into that one then a little bit. That's what I'm feeling now. I couldn't be here before, but now I can. And we're just going to do a little cross fiber there. So let's take about a handful more breaths wherever you might want to work. So this is again a marma point in addition to a common area of fascial congestion, connective tissue congestion. Okay, so then let's come up, and then we're going to take the balls a little bit further up. So you're going to have to kind of walk forward a little bit so you have space here right at the knee crease to bring the ball into that space at the knee crease. And you're not shoving it in too far, but it's going to be right there at the knee crease, so you're going to be right at the top of your calf muscles. And once again, you're going to feel it, I imagine, as soon as you bring your weight down. So see how you want to adjust the ball so you get that just right sensation. And once again, you might be down here to start off, and you might be able to make your way up. So just see where you need to be. And then we're just going to breathe into that, maintaining that just right sensation. If it gets too intense, we back off. If it starts easing and softening, then we go ahead and allow yourself to settle a little more weight. Maybe bring yourself up a little bit more to add a little more pressure. But always paying attention and listening for that just right spot and sensation. So maybe a few more breaths here, and then when you feel ready, or when your body starts saying, let's do a little rocking and cross fiber work, go ahead and just kind of rock side to side here a little bit. And you'll feel the kind of massaging effect on either side of that spot then. Moving across the tissue a little bit. Awesome. And then come back to center and bring yourself forward and up and take the balls out. Awesome. So now move any supports out of the way. Let's come into a table pose. Let's take that right leg out. Left knees under the left hip, hands under the shoulders. Get yourself nicely grounded. Engage the core gently. And then bring the right toes onto the mat. Stretch that right foot as you press the right toes into the mat. Push back through that right heel. And in fact, take your hands slightly forward, actually. Slightly forward of your shoulders, because we're going to do this little movement here. We're going to push off the toes, push back through the heel to do this little movement through that right leg to bring some circulation, some fluidity to that lower leg region. So at your pace, you can go as fast or as slow as feels good to you. Find kind of like a smooth, rhythmic, fluid movement here. You might synchronize with your breathing as well if you want. Awesome. And then one time we're going to just hold it back and press into it. Make sure you're not pushing the knee up. Let your knee be soft. And then come back and we'll do the other side. So stretching the left leg, press the left toes down, press the left heel back, get that nice length. Core is gently engaged so you're not sinking into your gut. And then when you're ready, we're going to do that nice forward and back undulation. And for some people, it might be a rapid movement. Maybe that's what their body's wanting, to really get that circulation flowing through that leg. And for others, it might be more slow. It might be slower, and it might be kind of more rhythmic, as if they're flowing through water, undulating underwater. So see what works for you today. What does that leg feel like it needs? As we do a few more of these. Wonderful. And then releasing back. Okay. So now we're going to move further down onto the floor to work the tops of the thighs. And what we're going to need for this is some way to cushion the pelvis. So I'm going to take this blanket and kind of fold it in thirds, or maybe even roll it. You could roll it up too. And I'm going to bring my pelvis right onto that for support. So once again, grab the balls. And once you get your pelvis situated here onto your support, so it could be a towel, it could be a cushion of some kind. Now we're going to take, and we're actually, I think, let's work with one ball at a time. I think that'll be easier when we work with the thighs. We're going to take the ball and we're going to come about 2 inches above the knee. So right about there on your thigh, on your quadricep muscle group there. So I'm going to go ahead and place that down right about that area. And the toes of the leg are up. And in fact, the other leg also onto your toes. And so just let yourself sink. So we're kind of here in a little bit of a cobra or a sphinx, but it's relaxed. It's relaxed, and you could even relax that left leg right now if you wanted to. It's just the right leg that we are focusing on. So let the weight of that right leg sink into the ball here. Breathe into this. Again, make any adjustments you need. If it's a little too tender, move a little to the right or left or up or down so that it's not so tender. And then once we've let the weight sink for a few breaths, now we're going to kind of do that similar movement that we were doing where we push into the ball of the foot and push the heel back and then bend the knee to bring it forward. So it's kind of like a up-down movement right in that spot. Let's do that a few times. And then we'll go heel side to side to do more cross fiber. Horizontal movement, side to side. So just swinging the heel side to side to get that cross fibering. It can feel so good as you break through some of that congestion. You can really feel the difference. All right, so let's bring it back. And the one other thing we could do, and this might be too intense, and if it is too intense, you certainly don't have to, but you can lift that foot up. And if you do this kind of bending of the knee movement, that's feeling just on the verge of intense to me, so I may not get too much of that in. But you could do that, and you could even just hold it up and let the weight of your legs sink even more. So there's a lot of different things you can do, and you can explore on your own too once you get familiar with your body and where to work with these balls to access those marmor points and those common areas of congestion. So once we've done that, we're going to roll to the left side, bring the ball now more to kind of the middle of the thigh, just not quite center, maybe just slightly above center of that thigh. And then we're going to come back down. And you'll know, because once you come down, you can play with the positioning and see where you feel those tender spots. And then look for that just right spot. And then once you're there, once again, we're just going to let the legs sink. Take a few breaths. And then here, you can do the forward and back by pressing into the ball of the foot and bending the knee to go up and down when you're ready to do that. And when you're ready to do the cross fiber, you can take the heel side to side. Breaking it up, breathing with this. And you can even add, of course, we're always breathing into the areas. And then if you want to add this movement again, you can do that. So see what feels good to you. You can always reposition a little bit if you want to find another little area that you might have been avoiding before because it was too much. But I always like to not only add, of course, have breath be part of this practice where we intentionally breathe into that area, right? This is CHITTA Yoga. It's always intentional. We're always working with intention. The mind, working with the mind to coerce the physical body through the power of the mind. And so intentionally we think of easing, we think of releasing, we think of softening. And sometimes adding visualization can help with that. So that was one thing which I hadn't mentioned, but you can always add some imagery and visualization as you do this work, imagining the areas opening and softening and releasing. Beautiful. Okay, so once we've done that side, now of course we've got to do the other side. So we're going to start again just a couple inches above the knee first on that left leg. So find that spot, wriggle around a little bit, tweak it, and once you have it, just let the weight settle. If you need a break at any point, especially if your back needs a break, take a child pose in between at any time to flatten out the back, to stretch the back. Always listen to the body. So even though I haven't done it here, before you go over to the left leg, if you want to pause and do a child pose or anything else in between, go right ahead, and then come back and finish with the other leg. So up and down movement, and then again side to side movement if you want. So there's no exact right or wrong in terms of how long you should spend. It really is you feeling your way through it. Some days you might spend more time. Some days you might spend less time doing certain things at certain spots. Some days you spend more time on one leg versus the other, depending on how it feels. But as a rule of thumb, I like spending anywhere from 5 to 7 breaths, nice big full breaths, just letting the weight sink. And then maybe another 5 or so breaths on the different kinds of movement that I can do, depending on the spot, up and down, cross fiber. In this case, with the leg, I can do a whole bunch of movement. Awesome. So when that feels complete, of course, go on to the top part of the leg where it's kind of like right at the center of the thigh, maybe slightly above center, but right about there. You're going to feel it. You're going to kind of know where that point is. And then again, just take a few breaths first, sinking the weight of the leg into the ball. Since we're here for some time, you might even bring a block under your head if it starts feeling uncomfortable for your neck. You might even have a bolster under your chest where you're just lying into it. So there's lots of ways to make this comfortable and accessible, because our focus is on the legs. It's the rest of the body really is not our focus. So the more we are neutral with the rest of the body, the more focus we'll be able to maintain and the more effective we can be with the legs and the ball work that we're doing at the legs. So I'm going to do a little movement here. If you haven't already, go right ahead. Explore the different movement at that top spot. Both of these spots on the quadricep region, again, are marma points. So we've correlated a lot of marma points with these areas of tissue congestion. Find your breath. Don't forget about the breath. Always paying attention if it's too much, backing off. Awesome. So take your time to finish up and then slowly roll to the one side. Take the ball out from underneath. Let's move our supports that we were using off to the side. And let's come into, again, a table pose. Take a moment here and let's just do maybe some cat-cows. Or maybe you go into a child pose, especially since for instance, I was in that back extension for some time, so a child pose actually feels really good to me here. But you might want to do some cat-cows or some other movement. So see what feels good to you as we just take a moment to counteract our previous position. And then we're going to come into a low lunge. Let's bring that right foot forward. And we're going to do the refreshing part of this practice where we do some movement to bring hydration and circulation to the areas that we just worked. So bringing that, again, coming into that low lunge, and if you need blocks, I actually am going to use my blocks today. I can bring blocks there for you. And we're going to do a little movement where we undulate between low lunge and our runner stretch. So find your comfort here, find your support through your hands, and then we're going to move back and forth between our low lunge. The knee never goes past the toes. Make sure you're safe with your knee. And then taking the hips back, pulling the toes up to access the back of the leg, and breathing with this movement. So again, find the pace that feels good to you. For some of us, we might want to really quicken that pace and get things flowing. And for some of us, we may want to go nice, slow, conscious movement. Very deliberate, smooth, slow, as if, again, that we might be undulating underwater. And do that a few more times, feeling the flow, the energy through the leg. And then the next time we hold that runner stretch just for an extra breath. Bring the toes down. Get a little extra stretch at the top of the foot and the ankle. Beautiful. And then let's lift up, bring right knee back, left foot forward, and let's come into that low lunge, modified lunge first. And once we feel comfortable with that, we will begin our movement, oscillating between low lunge and our runner stretch. Breathing with this. Make it deliberate. Even if you're going at a slightly quicker pace, we can still be deliberate. We can still move mindfully, fully aware. Go at the pace that feels good to you. Awesome. The next time you're in your runner stretch, let's hold it there for a couple extra breaths. Breathing, feeling the weight of the heels sinking, feeling the opening, feeling the circulation and the energy at the back of that extended left leg, and then bringing the toes down. Awesome. And then gently lifting the body, bringing that knee back. Let's take again your blocks or supports if you're using them out of the way. One more time, let's come onto our hands and knees and any kind of movement. So again, cat-cow, wag the tail. Maybe you even want to do some rotations through the hips, whatever kind of movement your body wants. Maybe you want to extend those legs again. So just see what feels good to you here. And then we're going to actually take our final relaxation in Crocodile Pose today. So when you feel complete with your movement, now come on down. And let's either bring hands to the opposite elbow or hand on top of hand, whichever feels best to you. Resting your forehead then on your forearm or on your top hand. Legs are splayed, toes out. So just the collarbone region of the upper chest is lifted. Everything else sinks. Let the arms sink. Let those shoulders open up. Armpit region open up. Let the legs sink. Let the pelvis sink. Let the weight of the head sink into your arms or hands. And let's take some nice, big, full breaths in and out. Letting go on that exhale. Maybe even sighing out, sounding out on the exhale. And I invite you to bring your awareness to your legs, to your lower body. Maybe just scan from the tops of the thighs
Just notice what you feel through the thigh muscles, the quadriceps in the front, the hamstrings in the back. Notice how the knees feel. Notice how the calves feel, the ankles, and the feet, the toes. And as you're breathing, I invite you to send your breath through your legs, through your lower body. Imagining that with each breath, each exhalation especially, you're just letting go, releasing whatever might be remaining, whatever lingering resistance, congestion, blockage. Breathe it through your legs. Let it come out through your feet, flowing into the earth to be recycled. Whatever stagnant energy, blocked energy, whatever it is, however you think of it, however you visualize it, breathe it through the legs. Let it release, let it flow from your legs, from your feet into the earth to be recycled, to be transmuted. And then lastly, let's bring the thought of healing and wholeness to your legs and your feet. Perhaps this time visualizing white light or healing energy flowing through the legs, through the thighs, the knees, the calves, the shins, the ankles, the heels, the tops of the feet, the arches of the feet, the toes. Just holding them in this energy of healing and wholeness. To me, healing is about a returning to wholeness, returning to homeostasis or balance. And take 2 more nice big breaths in and out. And then very gently, let's press up and just take maybe a child pose. Bowing to yourself, your inner wisdom. And then when you feel ready, gently come on upright. Maybe find a seat that's comfortable to you. So I hope you enjoyed today's practice. We focused on feet and legs, and hopefully your feet and legs do feel released and refreshed after that. If you have any comments or feedback, if you liked it, or if there's something that didn't work for you, by all means, please leave your comments below. I love to hear your thoughts on the practices and whether they're helpful to you, what really feels good, and what you'd like to see, perhaps. So yeah, I encourage you to leave your comments. And until next time, I look forward to our next practice together. Until then, be well.